It's time for Comeback Sports with Brandon, the Coach Perry, and Pat, the shot caller Flaherty. Here we go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Comeback Sports. That's right, it's a 10-topic show where we discuss all the current agendas in sports across the country, across the globe. We've got another jam-packed show for you today. A lot going on across the sports world, folks. My name is Pat, the shot caller Flaherty, and I am joined, as always, by my partner, Brendan, the Coach Perry. Brendan, how you doing today, my friend?
Doing good, Pat. Another exciting week in sports, and honestly, we could probably have 20 topics on this show. There's just not enough time.
Oh, there's so much. A lot happened today, too. So we're probably going to be loaded for next week as well for all the stuff that's going on over the next couple of days. It's just a crazy time. March is nuts. March and April, I feel like, are two of the craziest.
March Madness.
And obviously, March Madness is going to be at the very beginning of this show. There's so much going on there. Before we get going, folks, as you can see at the bottom of the screen, our Twitter handles are down there. And also go on YouTube and subscribe to Comeback Sports. If you're watching the show, you're probably already there now. Make sure you give us a subscription and also check out all the different cut-ups of the shows that we've done in the past. We've got a lot of different topics that we've discussed in sports, NFL, NBA. Got a lot of good Formula One stuff. Brandon is a Formula One expert. We also got golf. We got a lot of different stuff. So make sure you check that stuff out. But today, of course, we're going to be kicking things off with NCAA March Madness, the NCAA tournament. And, man, we missed this last year because this year this tournament has been friggin' awesome. It's been great to watch, just sitting at home. A lot of us are still sitting at home, trying to social distance. And this has been so much fun to check out this year. And a lot of upsets and a lot of different surprises in the tournament. So, Brandon, just to start off, what's probably your favorite upset or favorite crazy thing that happened in the tournament over the first weekend?
I'd have to say, Sister Jean's team with the big upset there. I think that's probably the biggest upset so far. But then I'd also have to say Ohio State going down and Ohio State losing so early. I don't think many of us were expecting that. And then I think one of the most exciting parts for me was the other day with Arkansas's comeback. Arkansas with a comeback win to get into the Sweet 16. I think that was pretty amazing. Michigan still holding strong, go blue. And Gonzaga still, looking like the number one seed and number one team that they are. So there's been a lot of exciting things in this tournament. And I've been surprised, honestly, for having it all in one city. I still think it's been so amazing. I think the NCAA has done a great job with, obviously we're on the next topic. They've done a poor job. But on this topic, I think they have done a good job with having the men's tournament in the one city and even having the women's tournament in the one city in San Antonio. But, having the tournament under COVID conditions, I think there was only one game so far, I think, that I've seen that was affected by a positive test. So that was good. So I think they're doing a good job, isolating the players and isolating the teams. But, yeah, there's been some really exciting basketball, and I think that's what the fans have been really waiting for, especially since, like you said, we missed out on it last year big time.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me, too, is, as awesome as it is to have a ton of fans in a packed gym for a basketball game at any level, where it's high school, college, or the pros, it's still so intense watching these games. It's possession by possession. There's so many good games. You're right about Loyola Chicago, man. They looked so good in their game against Illinois. They were a well-oiled machine. And Illinois is really good. They're a one seed. So just to see them there, they could make a deep run, no question. Ohio State losing killed my bracket. Illinois killed my bracket. So I don't think I'm winning any of the ones that I participated in. But, yeah, that was awesome. And then seeing Oral Roberts go in 2 rounds and get into the Sweet 16. Again, there's always one of those Cinderella teams. Oral Roberts looks like one of those teams this year. But there's, the other thing, too, is, I know that you and Coach Duarte, who we had on last week, which was awesome, both of you guys talked about Oregon and how good Oregon was going to be. And surprised that they were a 7th seed. That proved to be absolutely 100% true. They had an easy go of it against, actually VCU was actually that game that got suspended, or Oregon was able to make it to the next round because VCU had the COVID issues, which sucks. I mean, it just sucks that team had to do that. Their coach obviously was very disappointed. But then Oregon in the second round goes up against Iowa. You're like, are these guys going to be rusty? They haven't played in a game in over a week. And then they're playing against this Iowa team that's been great all year. They have probably the player of the year in Luke Garza. So, but Oregon looks awesome. I mean, Oregon looks like another team that could definitely get to the Final Four as a 7th seed. So just seeing the parity and how level these teams are this year. I mean, Gonzaga's looks great, but there's a lot of really good teams that could make it to the Final Four, and I think it's anybody's game right now. So that's one of the best parts for me in that first weekend.
Yeah, I think to your point, I think this is one of those tournaments where anybody could win it at this point. And I think those upsets have kind of proven it early, where you've had a lower seed already take out a high seed that was not expected. So I think, and that's the greatest part about March Madness and the tournament. You lose that one time and you're out. And it's win or go home. So I think, yeah, this is definitely a tournament where anybody could win. And I know Coach Duhart's going to want me to bring up, he was texting me consistently every time one of his teams won, telling me about that. And I want to tell you that he specifically texted me about Oregon and said that at least has to get him on another show because he called that one right. So I was laughing. Me and him had a couple of good conversations about the bracket. But yeah, his bracket's still looking kind of strong at the moment. But I think you brought up another great team that nobody expected in Oral Roberts. They're looking really good right now, and I could definitely see them making a Cinderella push along with Loyola of Chicago. But I still think you have to look out for Michigan, and I still think you have to look out for Gonzaga. And those two might meet because they're on the same side of the bracket. So I'm looking forward to that going forward. But moving on to the second topic, and that's the women's March Madness and the women's tournament. And we're mainly going to be talking about, which most people were talking about, was the disparity of the equipment and the disparity of the facilities, from the differences from the women's facilities in San Antonio to the men's facilities in Indianapolis. It was huge.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's great that they're in San Antonio. I think that's a good spot for especially a women's tournament because it's an awesome city. San Antonio loves basketball because their only pro sports team there are the Spurs. So, I mean, that's a great city to have, this tournament in. But it's just, you see the weight room situation where, they set up this weight room and everything is makeshift because they're in hotels and they have to kind of set things up differently. They have to social distance, just like everything else that we're doing. Everything is kind of like, you got to set up things a certain way. You're not using a typical weight room, but at the same time, you just look at it and you're like, this clearly isn't okay. So to me, it's just like, who saw this and checked it off and said, this is what this is supposed to look like. We're done here. Like, what happened there? I mean, I'm sure we'll find out later on, like what actually happened. I know everybody's blaming Mark Emmert, who's the head of the NCAA, and this does fall on him. He runs everything. I mean, he needed to. The biggest thing that people had a problem with him was that he never really came out and said anything in the beginning. Saying like we messed up. That's the point of the person in charge. Like, we know that you're not the one who set up the weights in the weight room, but you're the one that's supposed to stand in front of a podium or have a press conference and say, we messed up. This is on us. And we didn't hear from him. I know Jay Billis was killing him on ESPN. So I know Lynn Holzman, I believe her name is. She's the VP of the women's basketball tournament, and she was the one who took a lot of questions and was saying that this has sparked more conversations and it's helped us peel back the curtain. Which unfortunately, situations like this are how conversations get started. If everything was hunky-dory and everything was equal, we probably wouldn't be talking about gender equality in women's college sports, in contrast to men's college sports. So in the long run, this might be a good thing. It's another reminder that sometimes the women's college sports just aren't treated fairly. And but it's unfortunate that these women have to face this when they're already facing a pandemic in a March Madness tournament.
Yeah, I mean, to use a popular saying, I think the NCAA dropped the ball here.
Yeah.
Dropped the ball big time. Like you said, how can you go in there and sign off and be like, yeah, this one rack of weights is all right. We're done
Yeah, this
here.
looks good.
That makes no sense. I mean, we're talking about Division I athletes. When they go to their facilities at their universities, they're some of the best in the world. So to stick a little rack out in front of them is disrespectful. It's extremely disrespectful, and I think the NCAA is getting everything that they deserve for this. And it's obviously this bad feedback and bad publicity from everybody because of what they did. And they were quick to write it and they were quick to fix it. The women's facilities have been improved overnight, but that was because there was so much outrage from everybody in the public, which was rightly due. And I mean, they were touting, and here's another big issue. They were touting the men's facilities, tweeting it out earlier in the week. And that's even what got them in trouble because of the major differences. It really pointed out the major differences, how the men's facility looked like a Division I weight room just transported into a hotel. And the women's facility was a joke. It wasn't even a facility. There was a practice court, and then there was a few dumbbells. And that's just, it was, like I said, it was really, really bad. I'm glad that they've now fixed the situation. And I know a lot of people are going to talk about, the disparities are because of the big difference in the money brought in between men's and women's sports. But I think when we're talking about facilities, that should not matter at all. We're talking about players that go to the same university as the men's players. They deserve the same facilities. So I don't think they can bring up that conversation. If it's a different conversation as far as like viewership, like I understand not many people are watching the women's tournament. I didn't fill out a women's bracket. I get it. So I completely understand that. But we're not talking about that. We're not talking about viewership. We're not talking about money that's brought in from the tournament. We're just talking about even facilities, and they're expected to have Division I facilities being a Division I athlete, and that's what they deserve.
Absolutely. We're talking about the governing body of the NCAA tournament, the NCAA. This is on them. This is what they're paid to do. Like you said before, there's no TV station that is required to air the women's NCAA tournament. ESPN does it because CBS has the men's, and ESPN gets good women's basketball viewership because they air a good amount of women's college basketball games during the regular season. They've certainly done a lot of features on UConn and some of the bigger programs, Baylor, Tennessee, when Pat Summitt was still alive and was coaching. So they do it in contrast to CBS because they're the competitor and everything like that. But that's a business. That's people, the TV stations need ratings, so they have to think about that stuff. The NCAA is the governing body of women's collegiate sports. They're the ones that are supposed to make sure that women's college sports is treated equally to men's college sports. There's going to be differences. They're in different cities. The facilities, whatever gyms they're or arenas that they're playing in are going to be different just because of COVID and so forth. But, the fact that weight room was like that, there was such a stark contrast. And there's also reports that there's a stark contrast in their COVID testing, which is ridiculous. And then on top of that, supposedly their food is not as quality as the men's. So I think all that has been fixed from what I understand, but that's been some of the complaints to some of the players, and good for the players for sticking up for themselves and understanding that's not right. So, I'm sure we'll be talking about this more as the NCAA tournament rolls on for both the men's and women's. Our third topic of tonight is two NBA players that have once again been injured. First of all, Lamelo Ball, who was having an unbelievable season, probably was going to get Rookie of the Year, done for the season with his injury. LeBron James going to be out for a couple of weeks with his injury. So, you have two stars again having to sit out. And Brendan, I got to think this condensed schedule plays a part in this. It's certainly not, a season-ending injury that can happen anytime, but I think it does play a part in the two more injuries in the NBA.
Yeah, no, I think it definitely plays a part. Shortened off season, they're right back into the season. I think it plays a part, especially for LeBron. He's an older player. He's got a lot of miles on him, and don't get me wrong, huge LeBron fan. I still think he's the MVP. He's playing at an MVP caliber. But yeah, a lot of wear and tear on that body. So I think this sprained ankle is just something that's happened. Obviously, you know, it's a common injury in basketball, but I think the length of the time that the Lakers are going to look to hold him out, I think that is a little worrisome if you're a Lakers fan, and definitely worrisome as an NBA fan, because he's one of the best players, and he is part of the entertainment that we're all looking for. But yeah, I mean, I think they're also going to err on the side of caution and safety, because LeBron is a little older. He is their franchise player. If you could bring this guy back healthy, he's going to carry you to the playoffs, no problem. So I think the bigger injury is the Lamelo Ball injury. Obviously, the broken wrist. He's out for the season. Young player that was really starting to put a mark on the game and in the league. And I think the real question, and even that you just brought up, is he still going to be considered the rookie of the year? Clearly, up until this point, he really has been the rookie of the year. I think he's been getting everybody's vote. But now, with him being able to basically sit out almost the whole second half of the season, some of these other young rookies are going to be able to put an impression on that vote and maybe change it up. So I think the real question is he still going to be the rookie of the year at the end of the season? For me personally, if I had a vote, I'd have to lock that in right now, because if he was healthy and he was playing, he just continued to do amazing things and maybe even improve his numbers. So I really think no matter what happens going here on out, unless Michael Jordan shows up as a rookie again, I think LaMelo Ball should be the rookie of the year for this year. But the bigger injury to worry about is like I said, is LaMelo, but also LeBron James, because like I said, he is an aging player.
No question. With LaMelo, you know, it sucks that he's done for the year. He was playing so well with Charlotte, and it seemed to work. I remember, you know, we're Celtics fans, so as soon as Gordon Hayward signed with Charlotte, we're like, well, they have LaMelo, they have Gordon Hayward, they have Devontae Graham, they have another former Celtic, Terry Rozier. They have all these perimeter players. How's this going to work? And it's been working great, you know, because LaMelo is a pass-first point guard. Hayward's a good ball. You know, he moves the ball well for his particular team's offense, and it's really worked there. So it's, you know, it's unfortunate to see him get that season-ending injury. The only other player I think I'd consider for Rookie of the Year in the NBA right now is Tyrese Halliburton. He's been playing really well, but the Kings aren't, you know, they're a decent team. They might get into that play-in tournament at the end of the year and squeeze into the playoffs. So that would be the only other player I think I'd consider. You know, Anthony Edwards has been going off lately because he's taken a ton of shots. He looks good. I think Anthony Edwards is surprising some people right now, but he hasn't had the season that LaMelo has had. And then meanwhile with LeBron, you know, it's one of those things where I think we mentioned this a few weeks ago when Anthony Davis got hurt. We said, you know, with Anthony Davis being out now about a month, maybe even 6 weeks, you know, that's going to be a lot on LeBron to shoulder, just the wear and tear, the everyday, you know, mileage that he's going to put on his body. Even though LeBron is built like a cyborg, you know, the guy, he's human. He's going to wear down. So, you know, I wonder if that has anything to do with it. I don't think his minutes have changed that much, you know, before he got injured and since Anthony Davis has been hurt. But, you know, he's got to shoulder the scoring load. He's got to play better on defense when Davis is out. And now you got to worry about, I got to have both these guys healthy at the end of the season when we go into the playoffs. They're not going to get the 1 seed. The Jazz look too good right now in the regular season to get the 1 seed. So why not just, you know, let these guys come back, you know, ease them back into it. Even when Davis comes back, he's not going to play back-to-backs. I doubt LeBron will play back-to-backs when he comes back. And just, you know, these guys might miss a few other days even when they come back, just to make sure they're healthy for the postseason, because that's when they have to ride those guys to try to win back-to-back titles. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see, 1, when LeBron comes back, 2, when Anthony Davis comes back, and then 3, how they're going to stagger their minutes and stagger their playing time for the rest of the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, more to your point, I think they will be cautious on bringing both of them back, because that is your franchise. That is your title, to be honest. Both of those players were the reason that they won the title last year and the reason that they'd have a chance to win the title again. So I think, yeah, they'll be cautious in bringing both of them back. And, hey, I still think you can make a run for the title if you're a 5th or 6th seed, right? So it wouldn't shock me to see the Lakers make even still a run to the Western Conference Finals being a lower seed. Moving on to the big ticket for the big Celtics. We could use another big ticket. I think that's what this team needs, to be honest. I mean, what do you think?
I would take the big ticket at his age right now, Kevin Garnett, because that's exactly who they need. Somebody who's tough. The Celtics, I hate to say, I love the Celtics. I love Jaylen Brown. I love Jason Tatum. Kemba Walker seems like an awesome guy. And he was a good player. He just doesn't look right now. I don't know. He says he's healthy. I'm not sure. They're soft. And I'm not trying to insult them. It's just that's how they play. They play finesse. They don't have, I know Marcus Smart's supposed to be the gritty player, and I get it. He is. He's tough. He was out for a while. He's still trying to figure it out, and he launches threes constantly. We can talk about that all day. They need toughness on this team. So, the Orlando deal to get Aaron Gordon and Evan Fournier is out there. The John Collins deal to Atlanta is out there. If they could do it, I don't think this would happen because I don't think Toronto would do it. Toronto wants to trade Kyle Lowry. I would love to see Kyle. As much as I hate watching him against the Celtics, I would love to see him be the point guard for the Celtics. He's basically Marcus Smart, but a better shooter and a better point guard. He takes charges. He does all the kind of like things that piss off the other team. And he's a good defender. He's won playoff games. He's won an NBA title. And I think as much as I love Tatum and Brown, they need somebody to kind of get in their face and be like, you're not as good as you think you are right now. You guys are going to be superstars, but you're not there yet. So I'm going to tell you what it means to be a star, what it means to win a title, and then we'll see how good you get, because I think that's what they need. As good a guys as they are, they need somebody to kick them in the ass. And hopefully, I don't know if they're going to do that, though, this year. The other thing with Lowry is that he's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. So you're getting a rental for half the year. So what are you giving up? Picks I don't think are a big deal. But if you have to use the trade exception, then I don't think they're going to do it because that only gives you half a season of a guy. So depending on what you can send out to Toronto, if you can get back Kyle Lowry without using the trade player exception, then I think that would be a great move for the Celtics.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it's one of those things when I saw Kyle Lowry was on the market, I was shocked, to be honest. So I think it was one of those things where Toronto is going full rebuild mode at this point, looking to shop arguably their best player. And it's, what do they want in return for Lowry? Because I think that would be a player that could definitely change the Celtics team going forward, even this season on a short-term basis. But if you could lock him up for a couple more years, I think that could definitely help the franchise because, unfortunately, as much as I love Cardiac Kemba, he just hasn't been Cardiac Kemba. And I'm still open for him to show up, but it just hasn't been there. And I agree with you that Tatum and Brown are just too young right now, too inexperienced still to be able to just carry an NBA franchise and to be able to show up like a LeBron James every night and win games. So it's just one of those things where they definitely need some additional help. Kyle Lowry would be huge, great locker room guy, great attitude, could come in, like you said, push these other two guys, give scoring, give defense. I think that would be a great pick. And then the other guy that I'm hearing out there, which I've always said the Celtics need a big man, they need somebody down low, is if Andre Drummond gets released. I know he's not the Andre Drummond of old, but we're talking about a forced. You want to see tough? Andre Drummond will give you tough in the middle. He will shut down the center. He will rebound. He'll play defense, and he can give you some points down low. I mean, we're still talking about one of the biggest, strongest centers in the league. So I wouldn't mind. I think Andre Drummond or Kyle Lowry would be great additions to this team if you can get it for the right price. Like you said, I don't mind shipping out draft picks because draft picks are always unproven. You never know what you're going to get. So I'm always down to ship out a draft pick for a proven NBA player, and both of those guys are proven.
Right. And, if the Celtics do make a move and they move those picks and get one of those guys, they're going to make the playoffs. So it's not going to be a lottery pick. Even if it's 2 years down the road, just put some protection on it. That's what teams do all the time. And, with Tatum and Brown, as long as they're healthy, they're going to be a playoff caliber team. So I think that makes total sense. I'd love Drummond, too. I think he'd give them some rebounding and shot blocking. The only problem with Drummond is that you could probably never play him with Robert Williams. I think that's the toughest part, is that those guys just can't play together. So, if it's a buyout type of thing, I don't know how that would work with their salary cap, but depending on what they would be able to sign him for, maybe they even do a sign and trade and figure that out that way. But that's the only kind of tough part about that, is that you can't play those guys together. So Celtics have a lot of options. I think they can make a move. They might not make a move because a move might not be out there for them to there might not be a move to be had. So we'll see what happens with by tomorrow is when the trade deadline is. So it's going to happen quickly. But staying with the NBA, and once again, we've had a few shows here. We've lost some legendary sports figures. Marvin Hagler, we lost Hank Aaron earlier in the year, and we've lost another one, Elgin Baylor, 86 years old, lived a full life. But if you're an NBA historian, if you've watched any of the NBA documentaries, or Celtics fans here, we always remember the Russell Celtics versus the Weston Baylor Lakers, and that's how I remember Elgin Baylor. So Brandon, what are your thoughts on Elgin Baylor passing away this week?
Well, first off, for the viewers out there, if you like what you're watching, make sure you give us a subscribe, give us a like, follow us on Twitter. We're coming back with some great content every single week for you, which I think we've even shocked ourselves with how much content we're delivering. We just keep it coming. But yeah, Elgin Baylor, we're talking about a legend, one of the greatest centers of all time. Like you said, played some great matchups in the playoffs against the Celtics. We're talking about, like I said, one of the best centers of all time. When you think about best centers of all time, obviously there's Shaquille O'Neal for some of our younger viewers, but Elgin Baylor, Bill Russell, Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Those are some of the names that I think of. And Elgin Baylor's, like I said, he's up there. He's one of them. A great player, a great offensive player. And I think what the best thing that you've been seeing is everybody was saying he was such a great man. And I think that's the best thing. Everybody was saying, we're really missing out on a great person. And, take away the basketball, take away all the great things he did. Elgin Baylor was that great guy that made an impression on everybody that he met, kind of like a Bill Russell. Where Bill Russell is just, a larger-than-life person and just carries so much. And you just think more than basketball when it comes to Bill Russell. And I think that's the same with Elgin Baylor. I guess when you start a show and start a sports show in the crazy year of 2020 like we did, that you're going to probably cover some unfortunate events like this. But we're going to keep highlighting when we do lose these legends because they deserve it. They deserve this time, and I'm glad that we're highlighting a great like Elgin Baylor.
Yeah, no question. I think sports fans gotta look back to the trendsetters and the athletes that really helped these current players. You see the salaries coming out for these players, and good for them. They're making money, and that's awesome. We've talked about how athletes need to make a certain amount of money in their shorter careers because that has to last them the rest of their life. So I have no problem with athletes making a lot of money, and it's these types of players that have helped the current players get to where they are. So Elgin Baylor, legend in the NBA. It's so hard to now kind of figure out where guys rank in the NBA, especially because the NBA has seen such an influx of talent over the past decade or so. Elgin Baylor was probably a top 20 player at least. Even 20 years ago. And now I don't know if he is, unfortunately, just because there's been so many good players. But he's, Hall of Famer, all-time great. I don't believe he ever won an NBA championship. I think he retired without winning an NBA title, he's one of those guys you wish had won an NBA title. Those Lakers teams just could never get past the Celtics. But he played with Jerry West, and he played with a lot of good Lakers. And, typical Laker, like a very flashy, smooth player. But again, I wish he could have won a title. Even though I'm a Celtics fan, seeing the Laker win a title, I don't often say that, but I wish he did because he's a class act, and I think he'll surely be missed. Not having that guy around.
Yeah, I think especially in Laker Nation, they're really going to be missing him, and hopefully we'll get a chance. One of these first games back that the LA has fans, hopefully that they'll do a little something to honor Elgin Baylor because I think he definitely deserves that. Because he's definitely a legend, especially for the Lakers. Moving on to another legend, and this is my topic that I picked because this guy is a legend. I mean, when you think of professional bowling, this is the one guy you think of, Pete Weber, and he's retiring from the Professional Bowling Association after 41 years on the PBA. But like I was telling you guys before the show started, I think his biggest moment is his viral moment where he bowls a strike to win the match in the PBA round. And he goes, "Who do you think you are? I am." Like, the guy, he's a legend. I mean, a viral legend, but obviously a legend bowler too, right?
Oh, no question. You know, people always talk about how when you think skateboarding, you think Tony Hawk, and I think with bowling, you think Pete Weber. It's just, they didn't invent the sport, but they made the sport much more popular. They are the image. They are the athlete in that sport that people think of. You know, I can't name you another professional bowler, maybe besides Mookie Betts, but you know, I can't name another professional bowler besides Pete Weber because he's been the face of that sport for so long. Like you said, you know, his celebrations, his enthusiasm when he you know, messes up, his like agony that he shows on his face. Very charismatic. And colorful when he speaks. Sometimes it's a little slip of the tongue here and there with some profanity. Well, hey, we all get in those situations. But you know, Weber is certainly just a guy that you wouldn't know much about bowling if Pete Weber didn't exist. I remember once Weber became popular, ESPN started airing more bowling matches because he was a draw. He was somebody that people wanted to see, even if they were going to tune in for just a little bit. He was the bowler that people wanted to check out. So that's the type of thing that he did for the sport of bowling.
No, I agree. And this is the viral clip right here. If you viewers haven't seen it, we don't have sound for you right here, but he rolled the set right there for the win, baby, for the W. And I'm pretty sure it was like the final round of the year for the big title. Who do you think you are? I am. Like, that guy is a legend from that one moment right there. So like I said, if you haven't seen that moment, look that up on YouTube because it is such a moment. And then the other clip that we were showing was his final set that he rolled as a professional bowler, and that happened just this past week. So it was good to see it as a fan of Pete Weber, and I think all of us are, like you said, because this guy really brought PBA into your home. And even raised up the PBA and the Professional Bowling Association with some of the moments that he had and some of the things that he said. What a colorful guy. What a colorful character. Definitely somebody I would love to interview. Maybe we can get him on the show. Maybe we can get you on the show, Pete. I think that would be great if you could come on the show. But yeah, I think this is also a guy that brought mainstream sports trash talk to bowling. Like, the guy was trash talking his opponents, and I mean, I think that's what I love the most about him. Just bringing in that swagger and that flair that was never seen in a bowling alley and may never be seen again.
Yeah, I mean, his charisma is he brought culture, I feel like, to bowling. You know, it was more of a culture kind of lift that he gave to the sport of bowling. But on top of that, he was awesome. I mean, I looked up how many times, you know, some of his winnings and stuff. I think he had 37 wins on the PBA tour. They have their version of the Triple Crown, and he's the only bowler ever to win all 3 of the Triple Crown tournaments twice. So he's done things like that. He's won the U.S. Open, the U.S. Open bowling tournament 5 times. So he's one of those guys that not only was he had the flair and the drama and the dramatic celebrations and everything, but he won all the time. He was that good. So I think that's what separates him from not just being, you know, an attraction, but also being that good of a bowler. So that's why he made such a big impact. But moving on to our next topic, and this has been a topic that has really taken over the sports headlines over the last couple of weeks now. You know, we've mentioned the Desean Watson situation with the Texans. You and I have been vocal about, we understand why Watson wants to leave there. But over the last couple of weeks, 16 total civil suits have been filed against Desean Watson for what these accusers are saying was either very inappropriate interactions with Desean Watson, and 2 of them are saying that they were sexually assaulted. So, this is such a tough situation all around. The timing, as a sports fan, you look at the timing and say, this seems like a little too coincidental with what's going on with Desean Watson. But it's a serious situation because there's a chance that all these women were either sexually assaulted or, were mistreated by Desean Watson. So it's a tough thing to pick sides on. You don't really want to do that. It's a tough situation, Brandon.
Yeah, I mean, a very, very serious topic. And very serious allegations. So I know the allegations that are really going to be investigated and are currently being investigated. So hopefully they'll have a thorough report on really what their findings are to really let us know. But yeah, I mean, some serious allegations. But I think the biggest thing is, the timing of it. I just have to question the timing of it. And it's one of those things where why didn't this all come out 2 or 3 years ago when he was on the rise and was creating his image as one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? So why come out now when he's on the trade block and is the biggest name on the trade block? So I think we all have to question the timing of it, and even the numbers of that many numbers. That's a lot. And I mean, I have to remind our viewers of how our former president had 17 accusations lobbied against him, and nobody seemed to care. And I'm talking about Donald Trump. So I really have to question the number of them and the timing of it, and why now? Why didn't you come out before? But very serious allegations that need to be looked into. And I think, a lot of people are out there. This is one of those things where conspiracy theories start to fly because so many people have some questions, and people are saying, are the Texans the one that have kind of murkied the waters here to make Deshaun look bad, to maybe force him to come back or to even affect his trade value? But I can't see why you would want to do that, why you would not want to get max value for your player. So I don't think the Texans are the ones that do that, but I'm just talking about these are some of the conspiracy theories that are flying around because of these allegations coming out of left field and coming out of nowhere, where this guy's been in the league for a long time. This isn't like a situation where Ben Roethlisberger, where he had the one accuser and was accused immediately, and he wasn't on the trade block at the time. He was a quarterback at the height of his career in Pittsburgh, and the accuser came forward. So it's not a situation like that. It's a situation where at the height of his career, nobody's saying anything. They're saying he's the best player and a great guy. But then all of a sudden, when he says that he wants to be moved and traded, that now all these accusations start coming up one after another. And another thing that we all have to question is, why are they not, criminal? Why are they not criminal? There's 0 criminal investigations going on, 0 criminal complaints. They're all civil, which any smart person knows civil complaints are all about money. They're all about money and settlements and civil liability, which in the end all turns into money. So I think most of us just have questions about that.
Right. I'm certainly not a legal expert. I don't know a lot about that stuff other than watching, true crime documentaries and podcasts and things. From what I've heard from some of the, law specialists that go on talk radio or podcasts or other media outlets, is that civil suits are easier to get a sort of get the win. You know what I mean? Like to convict somebody of a sexual assault criminally, the percentage of the conviction you have to get in the court of law with the jury is a lot harder to get than what you have to get for a civil suit. So a lot of times that's why the civil suit is pursued instead of the criminal pursuit, because it's tough to. So right now, unless you have a camera in the room, it's a he said, she said, or she said, or he said type of situation. So, if you don't have that hard evidence, it's sometimes hard to convict somebody of this crime, even if this person did do it. So I think that's why the civil suits were pursued. But the thing that I do question a little bit, I don't know enough about law to really understand this part of it, is that Busby, the lawyer that is representing, I believe, all these suits, was the first, the first accusation came out, and the woman in the first accusation tried to come to a six-figure settlement with Deshaun Watson privately first before they pursued the civil suit. So their first option was just to get money without even going public with this. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. I know it's very difficult for women to even come forward with something like this. It's really hard. And then some women, especially if it's not, a very serious sexual assault, if it's just a sort of a more of a minor, none of this is minor, but more of a minor situation where, it's something that just happened in a second or two. Sometimes they don't even know that they were violated until after the fact, until they hear from other women. So it's such a strange situation. But that first, attempt at a six-figure settlement to me is, I don't want to say it's fishy, but it does put up a red flag a little bit, and just you got to look into it more, because that's something that I think the Watson side could talk about if they're trying to defend Deshaun Watson in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us have questions about it, and the general public has questions. It's been a hot topic. Deshaun's been a hot topic, it seems like, for months now. And so that's why I'm like, why didn't they even come out at the beginning when he first went on the trade block? And that was the time to come out now. But it's even months into this process when people start complaining about the process that now finally these allegations start popping up. So it's like, it's a very serious allegation. I think that we all have questions, and we want to know. We want to know what happened, and I think we will get answers, but I don't think we're going to get them anytime soon. I think it's going to take weeks.
Because of that, I think this is going to, and I'm sorry to cut you off, this is really going to, on a much less important level of this is really going to hold up the quarterback movement in the NFL. Because if you think about it, if Watson was going to go to the Jets, then the Jets would be trading the second overall pick to the Texans. The Texans would probably take Zach Wilson, and so forth. If Watson was going to go to the Dolphins, then the Texans might be taking Justin Fields or whoever at pick 3. And then if Watson went to the Jets were then going to ship Sam Darnold to wherever, possibly San Francisco. Then maybe San Francisco is trying to trade Garoppolo. So there's all these domino effects that happen if Deshaun Watson gets traded before the draft. It doesn't look like that's going to happen now, which is it's mind blowing. When probably 3 weeks ago even we were like, he's definitely getting traded. Now I don't think he's gonna, because of this situation. It's going to be really tough. So I think that's, another factor into this that obviously is less serious than the actual allegations and what's going on legally, but it is going to have a domino effect in the NFL.
No, I think you're right. I think it's going to affect the landscape of the quarterbacks and the timing of everything, because you probably would have seen this trade done before the draft, but I don't think you're going to see this trade done before the draft now. However, I do still think you will see this trade being done before the season starts. I think he's still going to move teams. And the Texans' #1 beat writer even said, it's time to move him. And he didn't understand why they haven't moved him already, because their value is just going down now. The longer they wait, the teams know that he wants out. The teams know that they need to move him. So all these other NFL teams are in a power position where they can wait it out as long as they want, so they can get Deshaun Watson at the cheapest value possible. So the Texans have to start thinking about that moving forward. But I know it's definitely a topic we're going to be talking about, because he is going to get traded over these next few weeks, and these allegations are going to come to a head, and we'll figure that out as well. So we'll talk about it again going forward on the show. But moving forward to topic 8 of the night, the OBJ rehab. And I wanted to talk about the Saquon Barkley rehab too. Both these guys, primetime NFL players, 2 of the best players in the NFL, both rehabbing the same injury, an ACL knee injury, but they both seem hungry, and they are both grinding to get back on the field.
Yeah, I saw that, I think they were teammates for 1 year with the Giants, but they've been friends since. Obviously 2 elite players in the NFL, as there you see OBJ rehabbing his knee there. I saw that Saquon Barkley, as soon as he tore his ACL, he kind of went to like a dark place for a few days, and he was just, very upset about getting injured and probably got a little depressed. And I think when you know another guy who's going through the exact same thing you are, and you can train together and you can work at it together, and you're going through the same, it's just like football camp, like one of the biggest things playing football was like you looked at the guy next to you when you were going through 2-a-days and 3-a-days and wind sprints and all that kind of stuff, that he was going through the same thing or she was going through the same thing. And I think we're seeing that here where these two guys, they're rehabbing together, and I think they're going to push each other, and they're also going to lean on each other because I'm sure there's days where, it's really tough when you're rehabbing an injury like this. Because the other thing is, too, when you're rehabbing an injury and you can't do, full practice and all that kind of stuff, once those guys get injured during the season, especially during the pandemic, they weren't around their teammates. They couldn't go to the facility. They couldn't go to practice. They were probably on Zoom meetings and whatnot, but they couldn't actually physically be at practice because of the pandemic. And then game day, they don't want to be around when that's going on. So because they're done for the year. So I think them getting together is only going to help each other, rehab from this injury. I think these guys are going to come back a lot stronger because they're working together.
Yeah, I mean, both these guys have been grinding it out. I've been following their progress on social media. OBJ has been posting a lot routinely about his workouts and how he's really getting back to being his normal self, and it's coming fast. And I mean, and same for Saquon. He's been posting really good workouts lately of him rehabbing his knee and getting back into form. And we're talking about two of the best players in the NFL, two of the most explosive players in the NFL, and both recovering from a big injury. And arguably the biggest injury that you can get in sports is the ACL. And I guess the other arguable one would be the Achilles. The Achilles and the ACL are the two biggest, most common injuries that you'll see in common sports, like a football, basketball, or hockey, or anything like that. So to see them recovering from this injury, a big injury, so fast and grinding it out, I think it really shows, obviously, that their talent level is just shining through, but also their work ethic to get back on the field and do what they love, which is play the game. So I'm really looking forward to seeing these guys back on the field. And I'm telling you, one of these two guys is going to be your comeback player of the year. It's just going to be, which one is it going to be? Is it going to be OBJ in Cleveland with Baker Mayfield getting him the ball, or is Saquon going to run wild when he comes back? So it's like, I don't know. It's a tough call, but I've got my money on OBJ. I sent Ben this training video of OBJ on the treadmill where he was flying. And I mean, this guy was moving. And this is, like I said, fresh off that ACL injury. So he's looking really good. He's working hard to get back on the field. I'm really looking forward to seeing these two guys back on the field.
Yeah, same here. If I'm going to pick comeback player of the year, I'm actually going to go with Saquon. I think it's when you see a running back come back from an ACL injury, and even though I can't stand this guy, and we won't get into what he did off the field, but when Adrian Peterson came back from a torn ACL and ran, I think it was like it was like 6 months or something. It was a really quick turnaround from when he tore his ACL, got back on the field. It looked like the same guy. When you see a running back do that, it just seems like an even bigger accomplishment. Not that it isn't with a receiver, but when a running back, runs the ball 25 times a game. Barkley's a great receiver out of the backfield too. He's going to get the ball probably 30 times a game. So if he goes back to that after recovering from a torn ACL, that to me is just unbelievable. And if the Giants, who are starting to spend a little money in free agency, if they get back to, possibly the playoffs next year, and Barkley's their starting running back, and he's having a huge year, I think he would be the guy for a comeback player of the year. But if he struggles, I think OBJ is definitely the guy. So it'll be very interesting to see how those guys recover, and knowing the work ethic of those two. And then, Saquon and Barkley, those tree trunks of legs, I think, are going to recover pretty well from that torn ACL. So it's going to be fun to watch when those guys get back out on the field. But our next topic is we're sticking with the NFL. We're kind of coming at you locally here with the New England Patriots. We've been talking about Cam Newton, coming back for the Pats. We've been talking about, are they going to get a guy in free agency? Are they going to trade up in the draft? There's a guy still on the roster that I know he hasn't been that impressive over the last 2 years, but he's hosting workouts now, and that's Jarrett Stidham. He's trying to get, some of the continuity down with some of his teammates and some other guys, and you're finally kind of starting to see some leadership out of Jarrett Stidham. What do you think about this, Brandon?
Yeah, no, you're right. Definitely some leadership and him being a great teammate. But him bringing in the new players for like a welcome party to his house and then doing workouts with them, especially with the new receivers and tight ends, I think it's going to go a long way. And I mean, it's team sports. So for the viewers that don't know it, the continuity of the locker room goes a long way in team sports. If you have any kind of riff or any kind of, bad blood in the locker room that carries into the game in professional sports, it's going to affect everybody. And then when that happens, that affects everybody's bottom line, how much they're getting paid. So it's better when you have fun with your teammates, when you can really enjoy your teammates and enjoy the game. The team comes out to be a lot better. And I'm talking about from youth sports all the way to professional sports. So I think this is going to help the team out. It's going to help the locker room out. And I'm glad to see Jared Stiddy. I call him Stiddy. all the time. I'm glad to see Stiddy stepping up and being a leader. And it's good to see. I would obviously love to see him develop, but this is going to help him develop by working in the offseason, working with your receivers, working with your tight end. I still think Cam Newton is going to be the starting quarterback, but I think this goes a long way to helping the Patriots and helping the Patriots locker room and helping these new guys fit into the system, learn the Patriot way, and to just come in and just hit the ground running, per se.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the Patriots beat reporters, Tom Curran, NBC Sports Boston, Greg Bedard, Boston Sports Journal, those guys who are around the Patriots all the time, have a lot of sources, have been talking about in their podcasts and in their articles about how, it's not, people like Stidham. He seems to be a pretty good guy. He's had, different situations in college that got him to where he was. Good arm, athletic, but he never really took the reins as a quarterback on the Patriots. He never was the one who was like, oh, the starting job's possibly available. I'm going to go grab this. I'm going to go take this. This now is sort of one of those things that is an indicator that maybe he's thinking that way now. Maybe now he's saying to himself, I got to do something to try to get ahead in this quarterback competition. And now, no matter what the Pats do, this offseason, whether they trade up to get a guy, whether they bring another guy in via free agency or trade, they now have two quarterbacks. They're not going to go at it in camp and see who's the starter is going to be. I think Cam, again, has the leg up right now. But the thing that Cam has is his leadership, his toughness, and his charisma with his teammates. Now you're seeing Stidham try to apply the same things, and maybe Stidham will then have a leg up later on in camp. I still, like you said, I think Cam's going to be the starter. But this is only good things for Stidham when you see this. And like you said, only good things for the Patriots because these guys are working out together and you're getting more continuity. Last offseason, they didn't have a lot of it. This year, you're already, a leg up from last year because of all the guys getting together this early before the season starts.
Yeah, to your point, I think this is showing the development of Jarrett Stidham. And like you said, how he's stepping up to the moment and looking to maybe answer that call and to help his teammates out and to help his franchise out. I think he's definitely doing that. And it's one of those things where I think a lot of people have been talking about the Patriots drafting a quarterback, but I honestly don't think they should. And I've said that many a times on this show that I would like to see them go after another offensive weapon like a Jalen Waddle if he's still on the board. In the most recent mock drafts, that people have had Jalen Waddle going in the top 10 now. So I'm not sure if he will be available, but I would still like to see them go after an offensive weapon or maybe a defensive playmaker. And I think people are forgetting that, the Patriots spent a draft pick on Jarrett Stidham not that many years ago. So I think they're still looking to get some value out of him for that draft pick. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Patriots didn't draft a quarterback and just moved on because they've already drafted a quarterback with Jarrett Stidham and they have Cam Newton coming in. So it might be one of those things where they just hold off for another few years on drafting a quarterback. Moving on to our final topic of the night, and that's Marlon Humphrey, the Ravens cornerback. Marlon Humphrey volunteering in his offseason and in his off time, volunteering to go back to his high school to coach track and field and to coach the hurdlers in specific. But what an amazing thing, especially for an NFL player to do with his free time.
No question. I mean, I didn't run track in high school. If people know me, they know I am very slow. But to have a guy like that who's the high school track coach, who's an NFL player in his prime right now, I think this is going to be his 4th year in the NFL coming up. An awesome player at Alabama, but he's going back to Hoover High School. Matt, the football program there is unreal. I'm not sure what the track program, reputation is. I would imagine it's good. They certainly have good athletes there, and they certainly have guys with speed and guys who are strong and can throw for the track team. But just to have a guy like that as your track coach is you're just going to gain more kids that are going to go participate in that sport because of the popularity of that guy. On top of the fact that he's volunteering, so it doesn't cost the school anything. We know budgets for high schools athletics are really tight. I know their budget in Hoover is probably a lot higher than some other schools, but still, helping out a high school with that, helping out these kids and getting involved. And just sometimes when guys like this do stuff like this for kids, the kids just, appreciate that. It shows that these guys care, that they want to show up for these kids. The fact that the guy makes millions of dollars or plays on Sundays on TV is great, but also showing that he remembers what it was like to be them, not too long ago, I think is the biggest part about this.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the guy's making millions of dollars. He could just be at home, like sitting poolside, lounging, but instead, every offseason, he goes back home to Alabama and is coaching track and field at his high school. So I think it says two things. I think it says Marlon Humphrey is an amazing guy volunteering his time to go back to help these kids. And I think it says a lot about Hoover High School, volunteering, valuing their alumni and having people come back. And it shows that people want to come back and still be part of the process and help out the next generation. So it says a lot. And this young gentleman that you're seeing right here, he specifically said that Marlon has been a huge impact for him and has really made a difference for him as a coach. And I think that's what our job is as a coach. We obviously want to win games. We want to win meets, but our real job is developing young men and young women and making sure that they can go to the next level of life and be successful. And so I think Marlon is doing a great job of doing that. And wow, volunteering your time, like I said, when you have millions of dollars and you don't have to do it, he could be doing his own workouts, getting ready for the season, but instead he's going back to Alabama to be a track coach. And honestly, he said when he meets people now, like if obviously most people don't know maybe who Marlon Humphrey is. If you're not an NFL fan, you might not notice him when you walk up on him, right? So he said when he meets people now, when they ask him what he does, he says that he's a track coach. He said that he's a track coach because he said, that's how much I love it. And that's how much it means to me. And I do see myself as a track coach because only time he's playing football is during the fall now. During the rest of the time, the rest of the year, he's down in Hoover, Alabama, volunteering as a track coach.
Yeah, very cool. And that's awesome that he tells people that. And it just shows you how humble he is, too. He's not walking around saying, I play in the NFL. He's like, actually, I'm the Hoover High School track coach. That's awesome that he does that. And it shows, you don't have to be a professional athlete to make a huge difference. And I think he's showing that, even though he is one that, you can just be this humble guy, walking around your hometown, walking around campus and just doing good things. I mean, we saw in the tweet video there that he was dragging the hurdles around. He wasn't saying like, I'm too good for that. He was just helping out, and that goes miles for kids. And Brandon, as a coach, how much that kids appreciate stuff like that. So good for Marlon Humphrey. There's a lot of guys in professional sports that do stuff like that, but good to highlight him, somebody like him with everything going on right now. But that's going to do it for our show this week, folks. That's 10 sports topics that we went over. Again, make sure you check out our Twitter handles at the bottom of the screen. Also, make sure you go to YouTube and subscribe with Comeback Sports. check out our YouTube channel, check out all the different videos, all the different cut-ups. Our producer, Ben Kudo, is working his tail off to get those cut-ups out there. If you want to look at some of the segments by themselves, you can do that, or you can watch the whole show. We've certainly discussed a lot again this week. There's going to be a lot again next week. We're going to be going back to March Madness for sure. We're probably going to be going back to NFL free agency. We might, we'll see if anything happens with the Desean Watson situation. A lot of other stuff that actually happened today that we weren't able to get to that we might get to next week. So a lot of good stuff next week. But thank you again for watching us here at Comeback Sports, everybody. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.